Welcome to another episode of Altitude Advantage. We are here in the podcast studio, and I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table, we have our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. The Broncos are in a bye week, which means they are not playing during Wild Card Weekend, but we did hear from the team on Friday as they had a practice. And we're going to break down exactly what the team message was, as well as take a quick peek at the wild card round, the games that we're excited about, and so much more on this special bye week edition of Altitude Advantage.
Yeah, the Broncos got a bye week this week, got to rest up, but we're eager for the divisional round to get here. Nice to not have to sweat out Wild Card Weekend. We've already talked about all the advantages of having a bye week, but the Broncos, like you said, Elisa, they were back on the field on Friday, and one of the things I took from head coach Sean Payton when he met the media was that this was sort of an OTA-type practice, and what that means is not from an intensity level necessarily, but more of kind of what the focus was. And you spend all year, all regular season, focusing on game planning and opponent-specific things. This gave the team a chance to focus on themselves. And I think you really saw, as Sean Payton mentioned on this Friday, that there was a focus on three things: red zone, third down, and the 2-minute drill. And Sean Payton was asked about the offensive performance. And I thought this was pretty open of him, talking about the offensive performance against the Chiefs, against the Chargers. And he was asked, hey, was that a vanilla-type game plan? And he said, as much as I would like to say yes entirely, it also just needs to be better in the playoffs, and the Broncos need to take a step forward and need to play better if and when they face these other teams. And so if you're seeing, no matter who you see in the divisional round, if you move on to the conference championship and then the Super Bowl, offensively and defensively, you want to play at a much higher level, and everybody kind of raises that level in the postseason. So it's not just the Broncos, but red zone. Sean Payton mentioned that obviously the Broncos struggled in the red zone against the Chargers. Got to be better there defensively. Got to be ready for those red zone plays. He talked about kind of game scenarios, which we know the Broncos practice all offseason, all through the season. Hey, if the road team comes in here and they're down 1 and they score at the end of the game, they're going to go for 2 and try to steal a win. Let's practice those scenarios. And then he also referenced the third down numbers, and certainly the Broncos offense has been better in that area in some games than others, but the last couple of weeks he wants to see a jump. So offense, defense, practicing those third down scenarios, and kind of just reference there the 2-minute drive and kind of those end-of-game scenarios. But in the postseason, it's going to come down to a couple of plays here or there. It's going to come down to those 2-minute drives. And so Sean Payton said, we're not just trying to fill time here, right? Like, we're not just showing up and saying, let's practice just to practice. They want to get something out of this. And so that was really the focus on Friday as the Broncos got back on the field and got ready for whoever they end up playing.
You mentioned it right there, trying to replicate those playoff situations, because the key to that is saying that he doesn't want to get caught off guard. And if you look at just last week's game, Jaquan McMillan talked about the fact that his pick six was something that they practiced and that he didn't really get right during practice, but he was able to come back and obviously score points in a huge moment in the game. But that's exactly why they play so competitively during these times, so that when the moment comes, their instincts kick in. It's more like a muscle memory thing versus like trying to react to the moment. I think that's a really big part of what stood out from what head coach Sean Payton had to say. And I think the other part was just the overall message of this team was definitely working on things. Mike McGlinchey and Pastor Tan both mentioned the importance of taking advantage of the bye week in that way by getting healthy, resting, focusing on the things you need to work on, fixing those little kinks out that you feel that you've had that you don't want to carry on from the regular season. But I think the other message was just the continued confidence that head coach Sean Payton has in this team. They asked him about his goals that he had laid out, and he went through them again. And he says, yeah, I stand by them. I'm very confident in this team and what we can accomplish. And then he went on to talk about the experience that is on this team, from JFM to Dre Greenlaw, these guys that they brought in that can help this team who got a taste of the playoffs last season.
Yeah, I think that one thing that stood out to me was kind of the appreciation for this moment, the appreciation for this opportunity, and that it doesn't come around very much. And that while Sean Payton is, I think, the 5th coach to ever bring 2 franchises to the number 1 seed, and I believe I think it's 3 or 4 times with the number 1 seed overall for Sean Payton. Like, that's an accomplishment because of how rare it is to do that, but that also speaks to, that's just a few times over the course of a long career. And so it speaks to, I think Sean Payton's had the number 1 seed 2 other times in New Orleans. And so for the Broncos to get there, and Sean Payton was asked, hey, did you expect this could happen so soon? And he said, I don't think you ever can expect the 1 seed. And, I asked him about having those guys that you mentioned, like a Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga. He brought up JFM. He said they don't hand out number 1 seeds like car wash coupons, right? These things are valuable. They're rare. It's hard to get. You don't know. Your division to some extent, like, you control for the most part, like how you play against these teams to some degree controls your luck in the division, but you don't always have control over what else happens in your conference. And just think, like, if the Patriots don't lose to the Raiders week 1, maybe you're not in this position. And so there is a rare element to it. And so when you have it, you have to take advantage, and you have to realize the opportunity that's in front of you. And I think the Broncos certainly have enough guys that have been there and gotten close to know that it is rare. And Mike McGlinchey, asked him about, he's talked before about what it's like to get there. And he said, hey, the pregame ceremony feels like it's 45 minutes. And then eventually he's like, you're like, what the heck are we doing? And then the game starts and you got to play. Yeah. And then it's 60 minutes, as Sean Payton said, 3 hours of real time that goes fast.
Yeah.
And so I think guys like Mike McGlinchey, like Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw would all tell you what an opportunity is. But Mike McGlinchey also mentioned that he's standing on the sideline next to teammates, and there's guys in, Joe Staley's he's in double-digit seasons, and you realize this is his first opportunity to play in this game, and it might be the last. And if you are a Mike McGlinchey who got a 1 seed his second year in the NFL, and now you're just getting back to it again, you realize how rare this is, and you try to impress that on your younger teammates. And he mentioned, and I think this is a great thing for a locker room to have, you don't want to be the guy that lets the rest of the team down, that accountability of giving your all so that you have the best possible chance. Because, and we've talked about this a couple of times, Elisa, like, you go back to the Detroit Lions thing of Dan Campbell saying, hey, this could be our best shot. You just never know. And Mike McGlinchey kind of alluded to the same thing, that this could be our best chance. And you want to hope that you're in the dance every year and that you have a great shot at it. And obviously things like having a great head coach and having a young quarterback with a lot of potential is that you hope that's the recipe to be there year after year. But you just don't know. It's not guaranteed. And Mike McGlinchey said, hey, you never know when it's going to be your last snap out there. And so that's one thing that stood out, is I think this team appreciates not just the kind of the technical aspects of the 1 seed of, like, you get the bye week and to rest a little bit, you get to play at home, you get to skip around. All those sorts of things are obviously important, but I think there's also this appreciation of, hey, we put ourselves in this moment and we've got a really good opportunity, and now we want to go make sure that we take advantage of it and don't waste it.
Yeah, Pat Surtain also talked about that, and the aspect of this may be the last time this group is together. He's like, and that's just because that's the way the NFL goes. And so we have to understand that what we have here is special and take advantage of all these, players being together and the chemistry in the locker room. You have to take advantage of it now, because not only do you have to appreciate it, but you have to know that you have the capabilities of going and winning a Super Bowl this season. And a lot of what you've mentioned over the course has been, it's not who you play, it's when you play them. And the Broncos took out one risk by getting that number 1 seed and not having to worry about the wild card, and not have to worry about traveling, or even, obviously they would have hosted a game, but we're hosting a game here where anything can happen. Now you have that extra week. You can watch an extra game of how these teams are playing, regardless of who the opponents are. And I think that's huge. Going back to what head coach Sean Payton had said, he mentioned, we've been able to put ourselves in a position to play these really important games in a tough environment for our opponent. And then you mentioned that it's a quick game, it's 3 hours. So he talked about ball security and harp on the little things that can be the difference between winning and losing. And I feel like that's key, because I believe he was asked in his press conference, like, what did he think last season when they lost in Buffalo? And he's like, well, I thought the same thing I thought back in 2006, where it's like, we need to find a way to play this game at home. And for the Broncos to do that and be able to take advantage of altitude, the fan base, just exhausting teams out here is huge. And I think that's part of what ties into these guys being so aware of the moment. And a lot of guys have spoken like, yeah, it's hard to appreciate it in real time. But this moment is a moment they're like, no, we can appreciate this, because the number 1 seed, you get an extra week of rest. You have an extra, game on the opponent that you're going to face. And now you're at a position where you have the week to then now continue your quest to Super Bowl 60.
Yeah, and we've talked about being 2 home games away and all that and home field advantage. And I just think that there's an understanding and an appreciation from this team. And you're right. I think in season you can get to that 1 game at a time mindset and kind of be in that routine. And when you take a step back, like you can do during this bye week, you do realize, hey, what's in front of you. And Zach Allen said after the game on, I guess, last Sunday night, hey, you got a few weeks here. You got 3 games to change your life forever. And it sounds a little bit dramatic, but it's
dramatic.
But it's true. And like, I think of these Super Bowl 50 guys that came back this year, and like how many of those guys were incredible players, but without a Super Bowl. Like, do you think of them in the same way, right? Or do you think of that era the same way, and all the great things that team accomplished, winning 5 straight division titles and going to 2 Super Bowls and all that? But like, do you think of that era the same way without a Super Bowl? And obviously everything that a pair of world championships meant to John Elway and his legacy, and Terrell Davis and getting him to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, like those things matter. Championships define careers, and our friend Steve Atwater, like the impact that winning a pair of Super Bowls had on his Hall of Fame candidacy. And then it's not just that, but it's the connection and the connective tissue of, hey, the 97 team comes back for these reunions, or the 2015 team is back for the 10-year, and then they'll be back, I'm sure, for a 20-year and a 20, like, you stay connected forever, and kind of those championship teams live forever. And so that's an element of knowing, hey, what this is all about. And for better or worse, like as Sean Payton said, 4 weeks from this weekend, right? That's all you've got left at max on this season. Even if you go all the way and you win the Super Bowl, this team has 4 weeks left together. And so I think it's about appreciating that time with a team that, as we know, every year the team's at least a little bit different. You might have the same core and the same main pieces, and Bo Nix will be your quarterback, but there's change, and free agents leave and free agents come in, and you draft players and guys, move on and all that. And so this is, at most, you've got 4 weeks left of this 2025 Broncos team being together. And I think you mentioned it the other day of that team picture from 2024 and how Sean Payton said, hey, this is going to be one that you want to keep and you want to keep track of. And you want to make the 2025 Broncos one that maybe you treasure even a little bit more. Yeah. And so that's part of this is making sure that you give it everything you have, so that in 4 weeks you're not like, could have given it just a little bit more. And that ties into everything in terms of, hey, how do we play these games? And you mentioned the turnovers and, their focus on Friday of 3rd down, red zone, 2-minute. All that is to put you in a position to make these plays and to win these small moments. And even Buffalo a year ago, like you could point to 2 or 3 moments that, I don't know if Denver wins the football game, but like you're in a game in the 4th quarter in terms of, hey, it's a field goal here. It's a defensive stop on 4th down. The receiver's almost out of bounds. Like it's a play here or there that could make the difference. And you want to do everything you can to make sure that you're on the right side of that. And so one of the things that we know about Sean Payton, and Mike McGlinchey said this, is like he's not going to allow this team to have anything but that 100% focus and that 100% effort in making sure that you're ready for first next weekend and then whatever comes after. But I think that's one of the great things is you have the leaders who've been there, the Hufangas, the Dre Greenlaws, the Mike McGlincheys, the JFMs, but you also know that Sean Payton's going to have this team ready to go.
You don't want to live with the what ifs. And we've talked about that in terms of how this team is just continuing to move forward and understanding, yes, like winning the AFC West was a huge accomplishment and the guys relish and they're proud of it, but they don't want to look back at that and say, man, what could have been that year? What if this would have went differently? What if we would have clinched that number 1 seed? Or what if we, and so you don't want to live with that. And so I think that adds into the appreciation of this season, not only from the players' perspective and the coaches, but from the fan base as well. And one thing that I can appreciate is not playing in the wild card round. I can appreciate not playing in the wild card round because there are some very key matchups that are going to make for some really great games this weekend. We have Buffalo versus Jacksonville, Chargers versus Patriots, and Texans versus the Steelers. When we're talking about the AFC, looking at those matchups, obviously the Broncos don't know who they're going to play. You alluded to that, talking about waiting to see when they're going to play. Obviously, the divisional round stretches between 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. But looking at these matchups, which one are you excited for?
I think just to watch, it's that Chargers-Patriots game on Sunday Night Football. Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth. I think you know enough about the Chargers, a division opponent, that you have great familiarity. You know what a high level Justin Herbert's playing at. And I think then on the other side, Drake May and what he's been able to do as a second-year quarterback is just as impressive. It's not a team the Broncos have crossed paths with this year, and so there's a little bit different level of familiarity there between, the Broncos and Chargers and the Broncos and Patriots. But it feels to me like that could be a really great football game, a tough, physical football game that I'm excited to see. And obviously, if the Chargers go in there and get a win, they automatically head right back to Denver. And I think most people listening are kind of familiar with the playoff scenario, but the Broncos will play the lowest remaining seed. And so if the Chargers go to New England and win, the Chargers are automatically headed back to Denver. If Buffalo goes to Jacksonville and wins and the Chargers lose to New England, then Buffalo's coming here. If the Patriots and Jaguars both take care of business as higher seeds, then the Broncos will play the winner of Steelers-Texans. So, again, the lowest remaining seed. It's not like the NBA. It's not like some of these other sports, March Madness, for example, where you just play the next team in the bracket. It's reseeded after this round, and so the Broncos will play the lowest remaining seed. And I've got my eyes on that Patriots-Chargers game because I think the Chargers can go in there and make it a great football game. And you got two tough coaches in Mike Vrabel and Jim Harbaugh, and it should be a great one.
Yeah, that's definitely one that's on my list to watch. But the top one for me has to be the Jacksonville-Buffalo Bills game, because you have Josh Allen going against Trevor Lawrence, and we understand the play that Trevor Lawrence has had over the past few weeks. But looking at the playoffs, it's really interesting because they will settle a score all-time series matchup that they have 10 wins apiece.
Okay.
And that's including playoffs. Jaguars are 2-0 there. The Bills have lost their last 3 games in Jacksonville, including a wild card game in 2017. Fun fact there. And the Jaguars actually undefeated in the wild card round. But aside from just how well they've been playing, those are 2 highly, highly mobile quarterbacks going head to head. And this is why the wild card is so entertaining and also so devastating for fan bases, because these are 2 really good quarterbacks that you could maybe one day, I'm not gonna say this year, one day see, down the line sometime, face off against each other. But one of their seasons is gonna end just like that. And so it's for you to have 2 dynamic quarterbacks going head to head, along with the key pieces that they have alongside of them, James Cook and Etienne and all these guys that have that offensive power. That game is going to be really fun to watch because it's really anyone's game. And obviously they're playing in Jacksonville and the surge that they kind of had, but you could just also never count out Josh Allen either. So I'm very happy I can sit back, have my little hot chocolate. We have a nice cold weather this weekend and watch that game because that's going to be really fun for the wild card round.
Yeah, that's it could be a really high scoring game. I view LA, New England as maybe this tough, hard nosed, grinded out defensive battle. Bills Jags you could see a lot of points in that game. It could be really fun. And both are really good teams, and both could be teams that the Broncos face down the line. And one of the benefits of being the number 1 seed and getting a bye to the divisional round is you won't have to play one of those teams. One of those teams is going to be gone and be eliminated from the postseason, and that's part of the benefit of the wild card round and the first round bye is that New England, for example, to get to a Super Bowl has to beat a good Chargers team and then would have to beat potentially a great Jacksonville team and then would have to beat maybe the Broncos, right? And that is a really tough slate, whereas the Broncos potentially only have to do 2 of those, right? And so that just all it takes is looking at these matchups and how hard fought of games Buffalo versus Jacksonville will be, LA versus New England, Houston versus Pittsburgh. All it takes is being we don't have to worry about one of those. And that's pretty significant, and it spells out the value of the 1 seed. So excited to sit back, to relax. Again, if either Buffalo or LA wins on Sunday, the Broncos will know their opponent as of Sunday night. If the Patriots and Jags both win, then the Broncos know they'll play the winner of Steelers-Texans, but they'll have to wait till Monday night to find out exactly who they're going to play in their first home playoff game since the AFC Championship back in 2016.
That's so exciting to think about. I'm telling you, that it's just, this is what makes the playoffs fun. This is why all the guys say, like, this is when it becomes real. It's a brand new season, and now you have to go in and take everything that you learned in the regular season and apply it so that you don't have any more growing pains. The Broncos are very focused on what they want to do, and I know that as excited as I am to watch these wildcard games, I'm even more excited for the divisional round and what that's going to bring and how much fun that's going to be. And obviously, we're unsure right now if that's going to be a Saturday or a Sunday game. But I think before we get out of here, you have covered this team for a long time. How excited are you to just be in that environment? I mean, obviously, you had the playoffs in Buffalo last year, but there's nothing like playing at home.
Yeah, I mean, I think the honest answer is I'm excited, but I just don't know, right? Like, I've never seen a home playoff game here at Empower Field at Mile High, and you hear things and you hear about the atmosphere, and certainly have seen the atmosphere the last couple of weeks, but I don't think anything truly matches a playoff game until you see it live, and to see this fan base get one of those games is really exciting, and hopefully more than one of those games. And I believe in the value of being at home and what that can mean and how it can change a season. I mean, I was in Buffalo. I was standing on the field at the end of the game as that crowd was just going absolutely nuts. Like, I know what that can be like. And so to get a chance in a little more than a week to see that in Denver is really exciting.
Yeah, I cannot wait. I know Broncos country can't wait. I know these players cannot wait to take the field at home. But until then, they get to sit back and watch the wild card round. Again, the AFC wild card teams are Buffalo versus Jacksonville, Chargers versus New England, and Houston versus Pittsburgh. That game will be on Monday night. And we're going to get you all ready for that once those matchups are done, once we know who we're playing. And next week, we'll have a brand new episode of Altitude Advantage for you. But until then, make sure you guys stay tuned on DenverBroncos.com with all the latest. A lot of news coming out this weekend that we're looking forward to. And yeah, should be a fun weekend to not stress yet. We appreciate you guys listening to another episode of Altitude Advantage. I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez, across the table from our lead writer, Aric DiLalla. As always, make sure you guys check in with our socials and stay up to date with the latest news and headlines on DenverBroncos.com.